up, Shredheads? This is Ben Katzman, and you're listening to the Nebula Music Podcast. I hope you're rocking out, because I'm here to melt your face, dude. Ah, yeah!
Man, are you from Miami, by the way, or no?
Complicated answer, but I would say yes.
Okay, what does that
I'm
mean?
one of those people that, like, born in another city, then grew up here, but also moved around a lot. But I would say Miami feels like the most of my life at home, you know?
So you grew up in Florida, then where did you move to? How old were you when you started moving around?
No, I was like 18, but my parents would send me to Israel all the time as a kid. So I was like every other summer or something for a long time, because that's where they're from. So get the international shred going. But then the last 10 years, I went to school in Boston, and then I moved to New York, and then I moved to LA, and then back to New York, and then back to LA. I was like, man, I'm sick of all these poser capitals. I'm going back to Miami. Yeah.
One of the last frontiers, I would say. Florida is like on another different level, dude.
I know, but Florida, the word got out, man, because now everybody's here.
Dude, you know what's funny? My sister dated somebody in Florida when I was in high school, towards the early years of my college time. So we spent like a good 2 to 3 years going to Tampa a lot. He was from Tampa, Florida. And so we traveled a lot. Dude, I mean, Tampa's a great fucking city, and you're right. But I remember, and I was still young, but I was like a teenager, you know? Like I was old enough to kind of be aware of like that Florida is very different. You know what I mean? From like the rest of the state. And you can say that about a lot of different states.
100%.
But there's a different vibe about Florida.
But Florida also breaks down into multiple parts, because you got Florida and then you got South Florida, whereas like Miami is like another country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It kind of feels pretty close in spirit to like anywhere in Puerto Rico, I think.
Oh, I love Puerto Rico, man.
Yeah.
You're right. It's like the whole beach vibe. There's a lot of people from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, like that whole entire area. Just feels like an island. But
and we got white people too. We got mad Jews in the squad.
Dude, I love that. It is kind of popping though. Do you think that's because of the pandemic? Do you think that's a lot of people are just going to Florida because of that?
I think because we live in such a weird culture that like irony reigns supreme. You mix that up with like Florida Man popping off, and like people hearing about Florida all the time and how wild it is. And then the pandemic, it was like the trifecta, you know? And now Florida's pretty cheap. So people are like starting to like leave those mega cities in Exodus and come down here.
Yeah. It's not
it's because it's lit.
You seem like you really enjoy it. I love talking to people that love their place. I'm actually from here, from LA. From Los Angeles. Born and raised, but I've had the pleasure to visit many places, and you know, it's one of those things where I'm getting to a point where I may want to relocate temporarily. Yeah, I'm one of those people that I like my roots. You know, like most of my family is in California, and so I've always known that most likely I will settle roots here. But I've had my options open for a long time, and I feel like it's getting to a point where I may relocate temporarily somewhere else, somewhere random, just to see how I would like it, and then maybe.
Well, I feel everybody should move like that at least once in their life, because there's nothing like getting knocked on your ass and having to like kind of like go into instinctual survival mode as far as like making new friends and getting a new job and just being someplace you're not really comfortable with. I think it like builds so much character, you know? Also, what's your birthday?
I am October 25th. I'm a Scorpio. Yeah,
there we go, dude. You feel deeply.
Dude, exactly. I'm here to explore a lot of power stuff, a lot of there's so much going on. And I've said this many times on this show. I love being a Scorpio, everything about being a Scorpio. And I feel like I'm a bit of not an oddball, because everyone is very unique in their own signs. Yeah. But this got very, like you said, this got very deep very quickly. But for me, when it comes to being a Scorpio, like I absolutely love it. And I feel like that's a very Scorpionic thing to say, is to love being a Scorpio. But
I feel like that's not the case. But I feel like Scorpios, they feel that way, but there's such a public shaming about Scorpios being so sensual and so deep and like so like a knife through emotions that people are like, they get a bad rep. But I have like mad Scorpio on my chart, and I definitely identify with Scorpio. I think it's a lit sign.
This is actually a pretty good segue. So I want to keep talking about this, but I want to kind of give you the platform a little bit to kind of describe what you do in the latest album that you've got, because this is how we got connected. You have an album that's been released by some pretty cool people that people would recognize, people that have worked with some very notable projects, and your project has a lot to do with astrology, and I think it ties a lot into your own history. So I don't know. I kind of want to pass it on to you and we can continue talking about it, but I think it's a perfect segue to describe.
I'm super down. Well, okay. So I got this new album coming out. For those who don't know, I'm Ben KATZMAN, the band's degreaser, but my new album is coming out. It's called Astrology 101. And I kind of treat it like an entry level to astrology through the power of shredding. And every song is a different sign. So there's 12 songs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, yada, yada. And they're all different genres meant to match the mood of the sign. So, you know, Aries is a very intense and very fun and wild, like little kid of the zodiac. Like that's my sign. So you have like the hard rock party anthem. And then like Cancer is like the deep, emotional, kind of psychic and ethereal sign. So we get the power ballad. Like Libra, they're like the fun. They love to be social. They're like a disco socialite. They get the disco song, Libra Love and Disco. So, you know, it's like I tried to just match it and like, you know, make it approachable for people who don't really know. Maybe it'll get their curiosity going on astrology.
How'd you get into astrology? I kind of read into it a little bit, but I want to hear from you more specifically.
I don't know what came first, but you know, my mom has an astrologer, and when I was young, I had like a lot of like temper and like stuttering, like speech issues. Couldn't really relate to anybody. I was off the walls, insane, and so we all? Yeah, we went to this astrologer, and the astrologer, I think, realized that like my sun sign is in the 5th house, which is like the house of like self-expression and romance and stuff. She was like, this kid needs to learn how to express himself. And so I got signed up for music lessons. And I swear that it changed my life. The rest of my life, I've been shredding. And, you know, I've always been curious about astrology. My mom's got a million books around the house. But in the last 10 years or so, I've really been like, okay, you know, I'm going to get in with it. I'm going to learn. I'm going to try and master this thing. Because my whole life, I've just kind of used astrology as a tool for like, you know, self-analyzation, trying to better myself rather than use it as like an excuse for behavior or something. Does that make sense? And I think a lot of people, they don't realize it's not just the sign you're born into, like your sun sign. You have your rising, your moon, and every planet. Every planet has a different aspect of your personality. So like, you know, Venus rules like your approach to love, whether it's platonic or romantic. Mars is like your sexual energy or like your drive in this world. Your rising sign is like the mask you wear in public, you know, like not that you're like, you know, putting on a mask, but it's like the version of you that you're comfortable.
It's what people see. It's what people see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've always been into it. And then, you know, the last few years, especially, it's gone like crazy in pop culture, but I'll be in the back of the tour van being like, okay, what band did we play with last night? We should do all their charts. Like, let's figure out the vibe before we see them again. We're like, oh, Star Wars just came out. I wonder what Mark Hamill's chart is like. So, you know, it's always been around. And then I was on tour promoting another record, and I had got hidden up out of the blue by my buddies. Well, now my buddy Simon Orr at Starburns Industries. And he said he has a niche label that does these very cool special releases. And he was like, I really want to do an astrology album, but I don't know enough. And I've hit up 3 or 4 people about it, and they all keep saying you should do it. And I'm like, okay, sick. The stars are aligning for this thing, right? And I just went in. Like I said, I started breaking down the songs by sign and what they all mean, you know, like for Leo, I was like, Leos love being social. They love being loved. They definitely love showing up to the party on their time. Let's make like a new wave disco track called Living on Leo Time about how Leos always dominate the situation, you know? And so things came together like that, you know?
Yeah. How fascinating. What's interesting is, I'm going to give you a little bit about my backstory. I'm sure if, you know, bear with me, some of you who've heard my story at least like a million times. Yeah. But the point being is I'm Hispanic, right? I'm born and raised in LA, but my family comes from Guatemala. But oddly enough, they are strictly religious, like Christian religious. Yeah. And in the Hispanic community, you rarely ever find people who are neutral. You're either super Christian religious or you're very into like holistic stuff like Santeria, like that stuff. But you won't ever really find a atheist Hispanic. That's the interesting part of it.
100%.
Fast forward 25, ish years later, the person I'm dating now, she's an Aries and she is an astrologer too, an accredited astrologer, which is interesting.
Wow. I'm trying to get accredited now.
Dude, it is a very long, arduous process. I've been through the whole thing, watching her do it. So, at first it started off as like a small little interest for me, just because, I grew up Christian. So all that other stuff is taboo. Right. Mm-hmm. But then she slowly just started telling me things and then basically told me essentially what you told me in a different way. Whereas like, here's astrology, here's all these things. And like a very naive person, I was very much like, oh, well, yeah, Scorpio means this, but I don't do that. I do all these bunch of other stuff. And she's like, well, yeah, but it's not necessarily like the rule. It's just a
be all end all.
Exactly. There's like little guiding points to help you like manipulate yourself to like do stuff as opposed to just having an excuse, like you said. That's how I got introduced to it. I still don't know a lot. But I've gotten to a point where
slowly, dude, you're going to hit that point where somebody's going to say something like, how did they know I have that habit that nobody knows about, but the stars called it like it is? And then you're going to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And it's a very fascinating rabbit hole. And it is interesting how, it's been around forever, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And then I think right now, maybe not so much now, maybe in the 60s as well. But right now we are kind of going through this period where people are very much interested in a lot of different religious things, maybe stuff to do with energy or just whatever. I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure if you ever stopped to think about it, but it is fascinating that how astrology has, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but it does feel a little bit like out of nowhere has kind of grown in popularity, like a lot, like almost everybody understands.
Bonkers. Everybody has an opinion on it now, where it used to be if you brought it up. And I remember like I kind of strayed away from it for a very long time. I remember I started hearing people bring it up. I was like, is this real right now? Like, this is popping off now?
When did you start noticing? I'm curious. Like
2014, 2015 in college, like I had a few artsy friends and they were like really getting into it. And I was in one of my shy periods of my life, which is rare, but does happen. And I remember being like, oh man, like I have never been able to talk about this stuff with anybody because everybody just writes it off so quick. And then like that started. And then we started going on tour, and then I started people seeing like merchandise at Urban Outfitters, like the different signs on shirts. And then out of nowhere, I guess like when Instagram really popped off in like 2015, 2016, that's when it like started peaking,
Yeah. As someone who's been interested in it for a very long time, how do you feel about the popularity? Like, what are your opinions on
I love it. I think it's fun, but like there's a lot of BS that's just poorly worded. It's like, oh, somebody's fun. Like they must be a Sagittarius or something. And then it's like, you could say that about any sign, it's like how I feel about daily horoscopes. Like you read something and then you kind of manifest it, but that doesn't mean it's true. You just made it true. So it's like, I'm cool with it, but I'm also like, I have the reasons that I use it,
Yeah. Okay. So since you said that, I'm curious then, in your opinion, when it comes to like the position that astrology has been, getting itself into and the way society is kind of moving forward, what do you think is the right way to take in astrology, especially as somebody who might not be that much of an expert in it? Maybe they're musicians or artists and they're interested in that concept. What is your opinion on that?
Get your chart done with somebody who knows how to interpret it. Interpretation is the whole key. And, for me, it really hit at a time where I was really down about a lot of things. And a lot of those things were like personal or within myself. So I kind of just used it as a tool to be like, all right, you know what? I really don't like this about myself. And it says this. And maybe that's an area of my life I need to like work on and shred with. And that's how I got into it. And I feel like if everybody took it a little further and got their charts done, that would be cool. I mean, I'm all for like the memes and all that stuff. I think that stuff's hilarious and great. But it's like, I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade. I'm just like, come on, let's understand what the meme really means, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious for you. I'm going to give you one of my examples. Yeah. So I haven't had, I haven't had my full chart read just yet, but I've figured out little tidbits here and there because of her. And, I've, through that process of understanding this knowledge, I have gotten to a point where I understand myself so much better. And I got to a point where I really said to myself, wow, I really don't know anything at all. And I'm kind of open to learn whatever I can. Yeah. with whatever time I have left on this earth. For you specifically, when you started getting into this and maybe you had your first chart reading or you just started to understand, what do you remember, or was there an experience that you had that was maybe eye-opening to you where you were like, holy shit, I've been doing this my whole life. Now I understand why. Now I can change it. I'm going to change it.
Yeah,
was there
probably
a moment like that?
There was like a moment where I started taking it super seriously and things were working really well. And then I dated somebody and I didn't do their chart beforehand. And, not that I write people off because of their zodiac charts, but I remember I was so torn up about the breakup that I was like looking at their chart every day, like, oh, if I only knew, you know what I mean? I was like, this is such a ridiculous thing to cling on to. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to compartmentalize somebody by their birth time or their birthplace. And that's when I was really like, all right, I got to go and look inward. This is like the time where I got to understand why I'm feeling so crazy or over the edge about these situations I'm in. So that was kind of the moment. I'd say like 2015, 2016.
Really? So you're saying that, if I understand that experience correctly, you're saying that you were obsessing too much over what they could have been as opposed to focusing on yourself? Or were you saying that you might have misunderstood who they were completely?
I think a bit of both. It's hard to tell, but in those situations, but a bit of both. But it sent me on like a spiral of so many crazy things, constant touring, constant hard work to like get away from dealing with myself, constant shredding to be like, all right, I'd rather be like in 50 cities this year than be in one place and sit with myself, So
why do you think this is fascinating? Because when you've talked to as many people as I have, you find little similarities in people's stories. And this is a concept that comes up quite a bit, but it's not always as clear. I think it's kind of hidden within experiences and reasons and whatnot. But there is this sort of commonality that I do find where in people's career history, you find a moment where they were just going, getting stuff, just pushing whatever. And then you find out a couple years later that they were just feeling all this stuff. And then it came crashing out in many different ways. Some people really go off the deep end. Some people just realize it. I don't know. But I've noticed that does happen. And I'm wondering, it's very common in artists. Yeah. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, why is that? Like, why do artists go through that period? Or a lot of them do, not every artist.
I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for why I haven't done that,
Why did you do that? Why did you go through that?
I feel like my whole life I've struggled to relate to people. Like I can relate to friends, but like, that song Under the Bridge by the Chili Peppers where it's like Anthony Kiedis is singing about meeting a million people who love him, but he can't find anyone special to relate to, And I feel like my whole life I've just been like, I need attention, but I really want a specific kind. And I want people to accept me for who I am. And I felt like I always worked hard to overcompensate for whatever like lack of like love maybe I had or something. And so I always worked hard. I wanted to go to the top. My favorite band is Kiss. And
it's a good band.
Yeah, the best. Look at this poster. Wait. And
dude, that's what's up.
And you start getting these little crumbs of success. You start realizing, oh, more people are coming out. Oh, more people are paying attention. More magazines are writing. Like more like we're moving up on the bill. And then your reality shifts because all of a sudden you think you have these crumbs to maintain. And then you're disconnected from the reason that got you there, and now you're in this whole other reason, right? And then you're like, I have to maintain whatever track I'm on because I'm young and like I'm not over the fact that I'm aging or whatever. And then you're stuck in this cycle of like, you're not really sure who you are, but like you're basing yourself on your success. So like you think you're the image you're projecting and you're not really the real you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think maybe, at least for me, that's how I felt. And the conversations I've had with people, it's like, it does come down to like that fear of failure. And that fear of failure stems from so many things. But like when you start the avalanche of trying to make it in any artistic industry or any industry, then you kind of get stuck in those little cycles,
Yeah. And maybe I misunderstood what you were trying to say, but were you saying earlier that you feel like a lot of, obviously it does have to do with the fear of failure, but a lot of it, does that stem from this, not being able to find where you fit in? Is that kind of what you were trying to say a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I've always noticed whenever I join a crew, like I'm always the odd one out. you know, or like the fun one to be around, but I never feel like I really mesh. But I feel safest when I form a crew, you know, and I've been asked to play in lots of bands and work with lots of artists, and, you know, those kind of like inner child experiences of like the cafeteria in elementary school kind of like come up later when I'm in those situations. I'm like, oh, this feels an awful lot like I still don't know who I'm chilling with, but I'm trying to like relate, you know, and we're talking about Kiss and like, you know, Star Wars, but still I feel like there's like some disconnect, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting.
I think you understood what I said though. No, I think you did get it.
I absolutely did get it. Yeah. And I do my best to try and expand it in a way where, you know, different people understand things very differently. Yeah. And I think it helps to, get to a point where everyone's kind of on the same page. One of the things that's fascinating about this concept is, and I bring it up a lot in other conversations, it's because I find it not only in my own life, your life, but other people's lives, where there is this, I don't even know where it comes from, but there is this pressure to not assimilate. I don't want to say assimilate, but like when you're coming up, I mean, you've lived in LA before and you've been to New York too. You understand there is this sort of like underlaying feeling of like, this is the blueprint. Here is what works. Yeah. Here are the people that have made it. Look at how they behave. Yeah. They all sort of kind of fit that same mold. Yeah. You got to do that. And no one tells you that, but there is this sort of understanding that you get over time. And I find that because most of us, not all of us, but most of us are young when we're doing that, that gets muddled after a couple of years of doing that. And then when you get a little older, you start to think about it and you're like, holy shit, where did that doubt, where did this question? Yeah. I never used to do that as like a 15-year-old, but now that I'm a fucking 20-something-year-old, you know.
I think about that, what you just said about the 15-year-old thing. I think about that all the time. And one of my things that I told myself when I turned 29 a couple of weeks ago was that I was like, happy birthday. Yes, thank you, dude. Aries season. We're going strong. I told myself, I got to stop doing that. Every time that thought comes to my mind, I got to recognize it and throw it away, because it only ever comes up when it shouldn't. It's like an irrational thought to have. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. You know? Logically, when you think of it logically, it makes perfect sense. But speaking from experience, being somebody who is very incredibly emotional, but has had the grace to be able to learn a lot from myself and somehow master some things, but I'm still learning so much. It takes so much effort to be able to kind of take a step back and be like, wait a minute, is this logical? Do I even need to feel this way? Yeah. And then you can kind of move on. I'm lucky to be with someone who's an Aries, by the way, not to generalize.
No, it's all good.
There's no bullshit. It's literally just like, here's what it is. You either deal with it or you don't. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I have to just deal with it and then move on and then grow from it. But it is so fascinating. Excuse me. The depths that we go as artists to try and make something that we create when it should be one of the easiest things. So for you specifically, I'm wondering, with this project that you've got going on, you have the astrology thing down and you put that out. What is your goal with that? Like moving forward, like what are you trying to do other than just teach people about astrology? Are you trying to help them kind of learn themselves a little bit better?
All my songs are about that kind of stuff. Like I got songs like my song titles are like Kindness is Hot or Cool is the Rule or Too Old for Retail, or my last album was called Quarter Life Crisis. So my mission used to be that I wanted to make it and like get to the top, and it was all based in like ego and fear and trying to be successful. And now I'm on this new tip where I just want to rock my hardest and like see where that takes me. Like I think people kind of fear chilling out on those aspirations because they're worried if they don't aspire so hard, the drive will disappear. But in fact, because I've been meditating, I got the drive like twice as much now. So I'm just hoping like people enjoy the songs, they find them funny, they think the riffs are sick, and maybe it'll pique that interest. But I also want them to like have a good time and know that it's okay to feel good. Because I feel like a lot of music the last few years with the way the world is like very sad and like keeps you in your own shell. So I'm trying to just make party rock anthems to elevate the vibe and transcend the shred.
I love that. I love how entertaining you are. I have a couple questions I want to ask, but I'm genuinely curious. That what is that poster behind you to your right? That
the astrology one or the Kiss one?
The one to your right. That one.
That one's just, it's an astrology scarf, but I thought it was so sick that I'm just going to hang it up on the wall.
Oh, I see. You have all the signs there and stuff.
Yeah, it's just cool. A wheel with a bunch of cool animation and constellations.
Yeah, I love that. I need to get more stuff. My room is pretty bare at the moment. You know, what's interesting is you mentioned meditation, and meditation is something I didn't do for a very long time. I started doing it maybe 2-3 years ago, I want to say. Yeah. And for so long, I struggled getting it right. You know, like I just couldn't sit there. And then one day it just hit me. Like one day I decided that I was going to try and figure it out my own way, as opposed to, you know how most people are like, they tell you empty your mind, you know, breathe, all that stuff, which it's all good. But at the moment,
it's hard to teach.
It's hard to teach. It's hard to learn as well. Yeah. And so I had to just kind of, I don't know what it was, but one day I just sat there. I said, fuck it. I'm going to figure it out my way. Let me just sit here and whatever comes will happen. And sure enough, that day, I've told this story before where I think I sat there for like an hour and a half, and I kid you not, like I didn't feel like I was there. I felt all these vibrations. Yeah. That was probably, I would definitely say that was one of the moments where it
kind of feels like you're on mushrooms while stone cold sober. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It is the weirdest thing because I saw colors. I saw lots of colors, which was so strange. Yeah. I felt that kind of stuff moving around. I felt incredibly still, but I also felt my body. It is the weirdest thing. I sound like a yogi.
Dude, don't worry. You got to embrace that artistic articulation when you speak, dude. There's no shame, you know? It's funny, like when you bring up colors, like I'm somebody who wears the same kind of shit all the time. My closet is like a cartoon character's closet. I got like 10 variations of the same outfit. I never messed with the color blue. But the last couple of weeks I've been so chill and so zen and so in the present that like blue has just been appearing everywhere. I went thrifting. The only shirts I liked were blue ones. I found this guitar pick in my pocket today. It's blue. My bed sheet is unintentionally blue now. I don't know, dude. Sometimes you're just like, you're thrown in, you go with the wave. You know what I'm saying?
Do you believe in coincidences?
Yeah. It's funny. I had this conversation earlier today. It's like, it's not so much that I believe in coincidences. I believe when you're on the right path, those kind of things are like coincidences, or deja vu are like assurances you're where you should be. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. So when someone tells you that, hey, like, it's just a coincidence, don't look too far into something. It's not a symbol. It's not blah, 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 blah. And your opinion is, it depends on where you are yourself. Yeah. The way you look at the world. I'm usually
like, if that was happening to me all week, I'd be like, we're manifesting the shred. That's why that's happening. Like, yeah.
I love that. I love that you say manifesting the shred. I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah. I think I'm going to start a bumper sticker line. I swear.
Well, I mean, I got to say, I really appreciate that you're open about this sort of thing, because it seems like it's accepted now. You know, and I'm not a proponent. I mean, I only started learning about this like 2-3 years ago. So to me, I don't feel like I have weight in it. Like other people have believed in this for years. You know what I mean? But I do feel like it is something that needs to be explored a little bit more. Yes. If you don't mind me moving away from it for just like a tad bit, I want to get to know a little bit more about kind of your heritage and your background a little bit. Yeah. You mentioned that you know, you're from Florida, but your parents are from Israel, and you grew up a lot traveling around, like back there, back here. Tell me a little bit about your culture, if I can, and how that applies to the area where you grew up, meaning Florida and stuff like that.
Well, I'm holding this guitar pick, and it's got me with the 10 Commandments. It's the 10 Commandments of rock.
Wow, that's awesome, dude. I love that.
I don't know if the thing I like about Judaism is the tradition. I don't know if I'm religious, but the holidays and the food, and my mom's a chef, so it's like a lot of time in the kitchen with these sacred rituals almost. But I never really felt like too tied to the religion itself, you know, or the fact that a lot of those people are down here. But I will tell you what, though, that like I think I got started on my path to rock because I never fit in as a kid, and I always struggled to like find like, you know, a place to belong. And I got this book, Jews Who Rock. And I was like, oh, it was like around the time I got into music for real. I was like 10 or 11. And then I'll never forget, like, I opened the center, and Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley are there. And I was like into comic books. So I was like, whoa, superheroes who rock and they're Jewish. And like, a couple of days later, I found the Detroit Rock City movie, the Kiss movie, in my brother's closet, and I watched that. And I was like, yeah, I'm down with being Jewish. This is sick, you know?
Dude, that's pretty cool. Why the religion side of it? Why did it not resonate with you? I mean, again, we've all been kids. Religion isn't really a lot of fun when you're a kid, but I do find that to some extent there are certain types of religion that tend to stick around a lot longer, and it's also a lot easier for them to stick around. But I do feel, and again, this is me being an amateur, so if I get something wrong, forgive me. I'm not Jewish, but it does seem
I'm not
like
gonna go and be like, this dude said this.
But I'm always open to learn, and that's why I do these things. You know, when it comes to Judaism, from an outsider's perspective, it looks like it's a very complex religion to follow. So I imagine it's a lot harder to kind of stick with it, especially as a kid. For you specifically, what was it about it that just didn't resonate?
I don't know then. I think I just didn't have a grasp on it. But the older I get, it seems like every holiday is based around the survival of our people escaping like horrible things. And then it's like, you know, everybody goes, well, you know, maybe none of those stories are real. But then like 80 years ago, the Holocaust happened. So, but I do feel like the thing about Judaism more so is like the perseverance and the work ethic and trying to like find your place in the world. Maybe right now is my resonating moment with it. So, you know.
Do you think you'll ever get to a point where you like maybe create like a hybrid version of it for yourself? Maybe you already are a bit of a hybrid version for yourself.
I don't know. I think I'm definitely spiritual, but I don't know about organized religion, you know.
Do you find that, and again, you might not know, but I'm just generally curious. In Judaism, when I remember studying the Bible, oddly enough, random tidbit, I have a degree in theology. You didn't know that, randomly. But one of the things that's so fascinating when you learn about Christianity in that way, you can time travel, and there's all these obviously examples from Judaism, but there's a lot of like rituals and little things that, if done today, would seem very weird. But at the time, you know, because it's in the Bible or whatever, people are like, yeah, it's holy, but let's not do that today. I'm wondering, in Judaism and your experience growing up, and maybe in your community, is spirituality, does that actually combine with Judaism at all? Because I
would 100% say so. You know, because spirituality comes down to like, with Judaism, I feel like it's really about the perseverance of the people and finding our place in the world. And you have to have a little faith in that, a little spirituality. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very existential religion, almost. You know?
Well, what do you mean by that? Existential religion?
I mean, it's like every story I've ever been told by a rabbi is all about like questioning the path you're on, you know, and making sure of where you are. I mean, I don't know what it's like in other religions, but at least that, you know.
In Christianity, and at least in my experience, I grew up in a very strict Hispanic version. Which a lot of them are. A lot of Hispanic ones are very strict. They tend to be very much on the opposite side. They don't really encourage questioning at all, in my experience. It's very much like what's written, you got to follow that verbatim. And so it's so fascinating when you entertain any other idea of what else might be, whether it's, I don't know, space or religion or spirituality, whatever. There is this like fine line that you tend to walk when you are Christian and then you want to learn about Buddhism, for example. Like you can't do that. There are very few people, I would say, that are okay with that. Most
I think the Jews are pretty okay with that. You know, but I really wouldn't know. I wouldn't be speaking from experience. I just know in my household, not a big deal. You know?
Good for you, man. Good for you. Good for you that you grew up in this environment. So when it comes to music then, and now that you're putting out this project and you're going to be moving forward with it and all that, what is the goal with this specific project? And do you have like more stuff in the works, or like where do you see yourself going?
Well, I wish I could go on tour, because the ideal thing would be, you know, you drop an album and then you go and melt faces across the world. But the world is kind of shut down. So I'm just going to keep making digital content and try and push it whichever creative way through social media. And I have a couple shows outdoors coming up, but my plan is to just keep trying to be creative and like keep hitting these strides. And when this cycle is done, when this album cycle is done, I hope to go into the studio and record another record right away and just keep going because I just want to express myself.
Good for you. Since you bring that up, I'm wondering, in Florida, are things still closed down, like in terms of outdoor venues and stuff? No?
Outdoor venues are happening, but Florida itself is just, it's the wild, wild South, I guess.
How do you like that, by the way? I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but in your opinion, when it comes to like the artistry and stuff.
Oh, the artistry, I don't know because Florida's so cut off. It's like its own breed of craziness. But how do I feel about Florida being open during COVID or Florida in general?
I guess, well, I mean, COVID for sure. But yeah, I guess in general as well, too.
COVID, I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I mean, I had it, so I got the antibodies. I think outdoors, if people are socially distanced, we should rock. You know what I'm saying? But in general, I like it because it's disconnected from the world. I feel like a lot of people, they go to New York or LA for this common reasons, and then you're not really living in the present when you're there because you have to be working so hard to maintain your life, you know? And here it's a little bit cheaper and you're in paradise. The beach is like a 5-minute walk away. So it's like, you know, you're able to find that moment of chillness that I feel like is very hard. And I feel like because we live in such a capitalistic society and we're also in like social media all the time, we're constantly being bombarded with like what we could have versus what we do have. And here I've been able to slow down and be like, I've got a lot of good things. I don't need to worry so much. I can I know I'll work hard, but I don't need to get caught up in the virtual non-real world that I feel like most of our generation is.
Yeah. Do you feel that is possible though? In like places like LA or New York or just a metropolis in general? You're right. I do feel like what you see all over around you can discourage you, but is that 100% the environment's fault, or is it possible to be like 100%?
No, everybody can find their own way. I don't like to generalize or compartmentalize. Those are just my experiences. And I feel like a lot of people I know have those experiences, but I do feel like I can only speak for myself, and like you can kind of find your slice of heaven anywhere you are, but you got to work hard at it. It's not going to be like, you're not just going to feel secure. You know, you got to think about it, get to the bottom of your emotions, and then manifest the shred.
That's like your whole mantra right there. Just manifesting.
I'm on this vibe the last couple of weeks, you know?
Damn, you think it's going to last for a very long time? That vibe?
I don't know, but I said I'll ride the wave and I'm going to feel the highs and I'm going to dig into the lows and we're just going to be in the process.
You're just going to hide away when actually, no, you're in the Aries. I don't think you would hide away when the lows come.
No way.
Dude, man, I appreciate you just being chill. This is like so much fun, just getting a chance to just talk about whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I think for me specifically, one of the things that I'm hoping for that everything does go back to normal sooner than later, because it has been a little bit too long, in my opinion. I mean, being in California,
I'm ready to go and melt faces. I want to get in the van and just set up and shred. Like this is the longest I've gone without touring or traveling in 10 years. So
yeah. Do you think it'll be hard to get some shows going? Because
I think everybody and their mom are going to be trying to get their band booked. So it's like
that's what I've been hearing. You know, there's a lot of especially a lot of the bigger acts are kind of taking up a lot of the venues. I'm wondering, does that worry you at all?
Yes and no, because it's like it does worry me, but I also I don't feel like I'm not worried about competition in the sense of like artistry or connecting with people. I feel very happy doing what I'm doing. But I do worry, like, you know, venues have closed. There's definitely going to be a monopoly on playing. But if you can get that one shot, live for that moment and rock it your hardest.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah. I do think that is going to be something that people have to look into, but I do feel like it's going to be okay. Once we get that first slump, it'll probably be fine. Everything will kind of get rolling.
Yeah.
Excellent, man. Well, to kind of end things off, I'm curious, what is your favorite sign other than Aries? I know it's Aries.
I don't know. It changes. I feel so weird giving an answer on that. It totally changes, but maybe Aquarius. Aquarius is like the Nickelodeon of the astrology wheel. They don't do anything by the orthodox manner. They kind of have their own ways of like interpreting things, and they get from point A to point D without going through point B and C, which is amazing. And I mean, let's go down the list. Mozart, Aquarius. Eddie Van Halen, Aquarius, like people who changed the game, but it came so natural to them. So
Aren't there also like a whole bunch? Well, first of all, every single sign has a lot of iconic people that belong to the sign. It is so fascinating when you start going down the history. Aren't a lot of dictators Scorpios, supposedly?
I don't know that, but I do know some of them are Aries Taurus cusps, which is like one of like the craziest. So
a lot of the warmongers were definitely Aries, I would say.
Yeah. All my friends who are Aries Taurus cusps, whenever like they get into a heated debate, I'm like, oh, I could see you taking this to the next level and not letting it go. You know?
Oh, Ben, dude, I really appreciate your personality. I think it's one of those things it's just fresh. It's fun to hang out with. If things do open up sooner than later, I'd love to. I don't know if you drink or not, but we can definitely grab a drink.
Yeah, let's shred some tequila or Long Island iced tea, dude. That'd be.
You said tequila. You are on my same page, dude. No one ever wants to drink tequila. What is this?
I know. I don't get it. It's like, that's the upper, man. Let's have fun. Like, you know?
I mean, it's a very stereotypically Hispanic drink, but tequila is like an international party drink. I love that.
That's how I feel about it.
Exactly, man. That and Long Island. I definitely appreciate that. Ben, I really appreciate your time. Just for shits and giggles, what is the name of your album again and where can people find it?
Astrology 101, Ben Katzman's Degreaser, iTunes, Spotify, but I would say shred it on Bandcamp because it all will help me out way more than those other applications, dude. So yeah, there you go.
Rock the shred, right? Is that your mantra?
Spread the shred. Let's spread the shred. Yeah.
Let's spread the shred. Ben, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time, dude. It's been fun.
All right, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me, dude. Let me know when this drops so we can blast the social.